Thanks for tuning in on Brock Page, and if you want to save yourself some time, check out my picks for this video in the description section below. Once again, I'm not a sports betting expert, just a fan. That said, let's get into some picks for the 14th. Cleveland minus 4.5 at Minnesota. Total points dropped down to an even 218. Although Cleveland successfully covered in their first meeting with Minnesota, neither team really has stood out against the spread. Cleveland holds a slight advantage overall, despite covering just 47% in all games. The T-Wolves covered just 42% of their games overall. Minnesota does hold a slight advantage in the location game, despite covering just 48% at home. On the other side, Cleveland covers just 40% of their games when on the road. Speaking of Cleveland, they have successfully covered exactly 50% going into their games as the official favorite. Meanwhile, Minnesota, on the other hand, has covered just 46% of their games as the underdog or pick'em. When it comes to location combined with game status, Minnesota does hold an advantage, covering 54% of their games as the official home underdog. On the other side, Cleveland's just 47% against the spread as the official road favorite. They've also covered just 8 of 21 with facing teams winning less than 45% of their games. On the other side, Minnesota's 12 and 10, facing teams winning more than 45% of their games. Both teams are gridlock, respectively covering 47% of their games when facing teams giving up more than 102 a game. And finally, Cleveland covers 54% of their games after a day off. On the other side, Minnesota covers just 38% of their games in that very same category. When it comes to the total points, both teams are collectively averaging 234 total combined points in their last 4 games respectively. That's a massive 14 points over the current total posted points. Cleveland games have also gone over the line in their last 6 straight. On the other side, Minnesota games have gone over the line in their last 9 straight. All that said, Cleveland looks pretty good on the spread and the money line here. Having said all that, I am foregoing the spread and the money line in this one. I do, however, like the total points in this matchup. Just to be sure, I'm moving the line a little bit and taking the over 210 total combined points as the first pick of my teaser. Next matchup, Sacramento plus 1.5 at the LA Lakers. Total points drop down to 216.5. Both teams are 1-1 against the spread in their last 2 head-to-head matchups. If you're betting against the spread, the Kings hold a slight advantage in all games, covering 54% of their games overall. On the other side, the Lakers have covered just 49% overall in all games. Speaking of the Lakers, they have covered 50% of their games at home so far this season. On the other side, however, Sacramento holds the advantage, once again covering 54% of their games on the road. Sacramento also holds the advantage in the status category, covering a decent 58% of their games as the underdog or pick'em. The Lakers have covered just 37% of their games going into them as the favorite. When it comes to location and status, Sacramento still holds the advantage, covering 57% as the official road underdog. Los Angeles, on the other hand, has covered just 42% of their games as the official home favorite. The Lakers have also covered just 48% when facing teams giving up more than 102 a game. On the other side, Sacramento has covered 51% in that very same category. And after a day off the court, Sacramento holds the advantage, covering 54% of their games compared to Sacramento, who has covered just 48% of theirs. When it comes to the total points, both teams are collectively averaging 218 total combined points in their last 4 games respectively. In addition, Sacramento games have gone over the line in 2 of their last 4. Lakers games have gone over the line in 5 of their last 6. All that said, I'm liking the total points and Sacramento on the spread here. I'm moving the lines and taking Sacramento plus 9.5 along with the over 208.5 in my teaser. Once again, I like the over 208.5 with Sacramento at plus 9.5. in my 8-point teaser. Wow. Next and final game, Toronto minus 5 at Chicago. Total points are at an even 205. If you're betting against the spread, Toronto holds an advantage overall, covering 57% in all games. Chicago's covered just 47% overall in all games. They're also 46% at home. On the other side, Toronto's done well on the road, covering a decent 59% of their games in that category. They're also 55% going into the games as the official home favorite. On the other end, Chicago has covered just 53% of their games as the underdog or pick'em. When it comes to the spread, Toronto has covered a solid 62% of their games at the current point spread. Chicago has covered just 40% of their games in that same category. Speaking of Chicago, the Bulls have covered just 43% of their games when facing teams giving up more than 102 a game. On the other side, Toronto's covered a decent 51% of their games in that very same category. Even better, the Raptors covered 55% of their games after a day off. Chicago is just 48% in that very same category. More recently, Toronto successfully covered 2 of their last 4 games. Chicago, on the other side, has failed to cover the spread in their last 3. When it comes to the total points, both teams have collectively averaged 213 total combined points in their last 4 games, respectively. Toronto games have gone over the line in 2 of their last 3. Chicago games have gone over the line in 5 of the last 7. Having said all that, Toronto's looking pretty good on the spread and the money line in this one. That said, I am foregoing both the spread and the money line in this one. I am, however, favoring the total points. I'm taking the over 205 in a straight-up standalone bet. Once again, I'm taking the over 205 in this one. Well, folks, that is going to do it for me. Once again, I have to remind you that I am not a sports betting expert, nor do I implore you to take any of my picks. If for some reason you decide to use the information on this program, you're utilizing it at your own discretion. Most importantly, if you're betting any of these games, do it safe, do it responsibly, and most important, have fun. For Brock Page, Predictions and Sports Picks, I'm Brock Page, and have yourself a positive day.